So here we are taking a look at the Feral Druid. Has a lot changed here? No, not really. It's basically the same gameplay as what you're used to on live. One thing that really has changed though, due to the artifact, you are going to have a lot of different cool looking skins that really make this thing shine. If you enjoy the live WoD style of Feral Druid, don't be worried, it's going to basically be the same, with a few minor changes, but the actual gameplay structure of playing this thing in a PvE world has not changed all that much. With this, guys, let's go ahead and move right on to the abilities. So here we are taking a look at the Feral abilities, and very first thing is going to be the artifact, just because of its name. It's Ashmane's Frenzy, and everything is alphabetical. So what's it going to do? It's a 1.25 minute cooldown, and you're going to claw the target 15 times over 3 seconds, doing some pretty decent physical damage and additional bleed damage over 6 seconds, guys. It's pretty solid, and we'll go ahead and show you this effect right now. So just keep your eyes on it, but it does like a shadowy claw, and then you've got some pretty decent damage. It's really small numbers, though. I mean, when it says you're hitting it 15 times for 44,000, it means out of all 15 times, that's the damage you're going to do, and then the bleed damage on top of it. But it also does award 3 combo points. So with that being said, Bear Form is still here. No updated model for it unless you are actually a Guardian Druid and you're running with the artifact. Berserk's still here also. 3-minute cooldown. Reduces the cost of all cat form abilities by 50% and increases the maximum energy by 50 for 15 seconds. It requires cat form. Still, this is going to be your cooldown. It is a 3-minute cooldown, but it does let you do some pretty decent burst in a short window. Cat form. It's cat form. Works the same. It's going to increase your movement speed by 30% and grants protection from polymorph effects and reducing falling damage. Shapeshifting still frees you from movement and pairing effects also. Dash is still here. 3-minute cooldown. Activates cat form and increases movement speed by 70% while in cat form for 15 seconds. Displacer Beast is a talent. We'll go over talents later. Dreamwalk is here. This just 1-minute cooldown, guys, and all this does is it's a teleport taking you to your class order hall. Now, I will say this has a very cool effect, and as the bar fills up, you're actually seeing the moon get a little more progressive. I'm going to stop that now. But it is a cool little effect that you get as you're porting back to your class order hall. Entangling Roots. Yep, still does the same thing. There you go. Nothing different there. It's going to hold him in place for 30 seconds and damage will end up breaking it. Ferocious Bite. Same thing, guys. It's going to deal increased amount of damage based on combo points. Now, it does say Ferocious Bite will refresh the duration of your rip on the target. That is due to a talent that I've got, and it updated the tooltip. But it's just going to do additional damage depending on how many combo points, and it'll consume up to 25 additional energy to increase the damage by up to 100%. So if you use another 25, you're looking at double damage. Growl's still here in case you got to hit Bear Form and taunt something off of for some silly reason. You still got that available. Healing Touch is here, but it's quite weak, very mild. You're looking at 36,000 healing on a 583,000 character. Not a whole hell of a lot of healing. Maim is still here. Basically works the same. The damage seems a lot lower than normal, but it does a decent amount of damage and also stuns the target depending on however many combo points you end up spending, and it's right there. Mighty Bash is a talent. Moonfire it's usable, and they have a talent that makes it usable in cat form, but it will still end up pulling you out of cat form if you try and use it, unless you are talented, and we'll go over that in the talents. Prowl is still here. Basically, if you're out of combat, you're going to hit Prowl, and it's going to not only put you in cat form, but it'll stealth you. Still, sneaky, sneaky kitty. Rake has had a little bit of a change. Rake the target and deal bleed damage up front, and then also do a moderate amount of bleed damage over 15 seconds. Reduces the target's movement speed by 50% for 12 seconds. While stealth, Rake will also stun the target for 4 seconds and deal 100% increased damage. So you have a little bit of an opener here, and you have a choice between Rake or Shred in your opener, and we'll go over that in a few minutes. Rebirth, still your battle res. Basically, you can use this in combat, bring somebody back to life, no different. Regrowth. This is only here due to an affinity, guys. The restoration affinity, it is a quick heal. Rejuve is a heal over time, and again, it's only here for the restoration affinity talent. Remove corruption. You still are able to remove and decurse. Revive does exactly what it says. You're going to bring the targeted person back to life as long as they're an ally. Rip works the same, guys. It's going to cause bleed damage over 24 seconds. Damage is going to be increased per combo point, so you want to always shoot for that 5 combo point rip. Shred. Not a lot of changes here. Shred the target, causing 44,000 physical damage. It's an okay amount of damage to the target and deals 20% increased damage against bleeding targets. So, rule number 1, make sure it's bleeding. While stealth, Shred deals 20% increased damage and has double the chance to critically strike. Gonna have, again, it comes down to which opener you want. Do you want to open with Shred or do you want to open with Rake? A little bit of a gameplay choice there, but it's only for the beginning of the fight. Skull Bash, still your interrupt. It's going to lock him out of that school for 4 seconds, 15-second cooldown. Still good. Stampeding Roar, instant, 2-minute cooldown. Lets loose a wild roar, increasing the movement speed of all friendly players within 10 yards by 60% for 8 seconds. Still really nice utility. There's a lot of fights that this will probably become very useful for. Survival Instincts is nice though, very good damage reduction cooldown. You no longer have Bark Skin as a cat, but this works pretty damn good. It's got a 2-minute recharge, you've got 2 charges, as it says max 2 charges, but reduces all damage you take by 50% for 6 seconds. Very nice if timed right. You can reduce a lot of damage, and it helps out. Swiftmend, it's an instant heal, and again, this is only here due to the restoration affinity. Swipe requires cat form, swipe nearby enemies, inflicting very little physical damage, but deals 20% increased damage against bleeding targets, awards 1 combo point. Now, one thing I will say is swipe, and you still have the mechanic where if you crit, you can end up getting an additional combo point. It still works off of that also, and we'll go over that ability here in a minute. Thrash strikes all nearby enemies, dealing 7,297 bleed damage up front, and additional bleed damage over 15 seconds. Again, any of your bleeds, we'll go over this right now in the mastery, but they're going to be able to be increased. It seems really weak right now, but it works nice, and in an AoE situation, always thrash before you swipe to make sure that you get the additional 20% for the bleeding target. Tiger's Fury, this is still a nice little short 30-second cooldown. Instantly restores 60 energy, increases the damage of all your attacks by 15% for their full duration, lasts 8 seconds. Really nice gameplay involved in this. Basically, you're going to want to use this and then apply your bleeds to get the max benefit out of it. Travel Form, Shapeshift, works the same, guys. It's going to turn you into the stag, like so. If you cannot fly, if you can fly, you're going to turn into either the bird or bat form, depending on your race. And that's still the same situation as you have seen before. So we're going to get into the passive now. Feline Swiftness, increase your movement speed by 15%. Really nice to end up having. Feral Instinct, passive, reduce the chance enemies can detect you while Prowl is active. Infected Wounds, this has had a little bit of a change. I believe this actually was more like a Mortal Strike. I could be wrong, but I thought it was more like a Mortal Strike on live, to where it reduced the amount of healing. But right now, Rake causes an infected wound in the target, reducing the target's movement speed by 50% for 12 seconds. I could be wrong with that, guys. I haven't played a Feral Druid in quite a long time, but I thought this worked more like a Mortal Strike. Mastery, Razor Claws, passive, increases the damage done by your cat form bleeds by an additional whatever your mastery is. Currently it's 40%. Mastery is still looking pretty strong for the kitty. Omen of Clarity, your auto attacks have a chance to cause clear casting state, making your next cat form ability cost no energy. Predatory Swiftness, your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to make your next healing touch, Entangling Roots, or Rebirth instant, free, and castable in all forms. This is still a really nice piece for continuing, like if you're questing, you'll be able to just touch yourself up all the time with Healing Touch. It's got some neat gameplay modifiers in there, and then you can also do the instant cast Rebirth without having to jump out of cat form, just keep on going. A lot of little different gameplays on it. Primal Fury, passive, requires cat form, obviously. When you critically strike with an attack that generates a combo point, you gain an additional combo point. Damage over time cannot trigger this effect. So this is what I was talking about with the additional combo points. And there was a few times, I'm pretty sure it was a bug and not intended, but Swipe would actually, if it crit on more than one target, it was building more combo points. And it was a little different. So, and here we are. Last one, Ysera's Gift. This item here is also part of the Restoration Affinity, which is a talent, and we will get right into those right now. Alright, so here's the talents, and you can see kind of what I was running with. And the reason for this was, it wasn't so much for top damage in any situation, but it was more for the questing as I quested. And this seemed to play pretty well, but we will discuss every single one of them. At level 15, you have Predator. The cooldown on Tiger's Fury resets when a target dies with one of your bleed effects active. That's a pretty nice one, but I went with Blood Scent. It's passive. Your melee abilities in cat form have a 10% increased critical strike chance on targets with bleed effects, just for the additional combo points. Lunar Inspiration. Passive. Moonfire is now usable while in cat form, generates 1 combo point, deals damage based on attack power, and costs 30 energy. I didn't even try this one. I don't see a point of adding Moonfire into it. I know it's going to increase based on attack power and it's going to have increased damage, but if it were, you're already dealing with enough bleeds and dots, you don't need another Affliction Warlock spec. Renewal, instant, 2-minute cooldown, instantly heals you for 30% of the maximum health, usable in all shapeshift forms. Really nice little pop appeal, that's about it. Displacer Beast, this is still pretty nice, guys. It's basically cat form blink. Teleports you up to 20 yards forward, activating cat form and increasing your movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. Really fun to play with. Pretty decent. I mean, it just puts you forward and gives you that run speed. Not bad. And then you've got Wild Charge. Wild Charge in cat form, leap behind an enemy, dazing them for 3 seconds. If you need an additional stun, this works good, but you can see all the different things that it can do there. 15-second cooldown on that bad boy. So 45, this is all your affinity group, and this is a weird choice really, but this is balance affinity, and what it's going to do, it's passive. You gain Astral Influence, which increases the range of all your abilities by 5 yards, and then you also learn Moon Conform, Star Surge, Lunar Strike, Solar Wrath, and Sunfire. They do have a deal to where it swaps over your agility to whatever the spell power cost is, and if you really need a ranged spec for some sort of fight, then I guess this would work. But for the most part, I didn't see another reason to have another damage dealer spec, at least not at this point. Something may come up later, and I'm sorry about it being cut off up there, but there's only so much room. Guardian Affinity, passive, you gain Thick Hide, reduces all damage taken by 10%. That's a little bit better. A little more survivability is always good, and then you also learn Mangle, Iron Furt, and Frenzied Regen, in case you gotta pop into bear form and tank something. Restoration Affinity, this is the one I went with. It's passive, you gain Ysera's Gift, which heals you for 3% of your maximum health every 5 seconds. If you are at full health, a random nearby injured ally will also be healed instead. And then it gives you Rejuve, Regrowth, and Swiftmend, like I mentioned before in the abilities. Level 60, Mighty Bash, still a very strong stun, 50-second cooldown, and it's usable in all shapeshift forms, and it's going to stun them out for 5 seconds. Mass Entanglement, basically this is Mass Roots. You're going to root the target in place for 20 seconds, and it spreads to an additional nearby enemies. Damage will interrupt the effect. So if you got a bunch of melee mobs that are attacking, basically you can toss this out on a 30-second cooldown and just lock them in place, but remember, diminishing returns will eventually catch up to that if you've got too many. Typhoon, 30-second cooldown, still a very nice knockback, and it also dazes them for 6 seconds, and it's usable in all shapeshift forms, so if you need to do some knockbacks, there you go. Level 75, I did have Soul of the Forest, and the reason for this was your finishing moves grant 6 energy per combo point. Getting that extra 30 energy back every time you use a finishing move kind of increased the gameplay style, because unlike most, I don't like the feral pacing is very slow to me. Some people really enjoy it because it's more of a technique than anything else, but it is a very slow pacing without that energy, and it drives me crazy. Incarnation, King of the Jungle, replaces Berserk. Instant. 3-minute cooldown. Improved cat form that allows the use of Prowl while in combat. Causes Shred and Rake to deal damage as if Stealth were active. Reduces the cost of all cat form abilities by 50%. And increases maximum energy by 50. Lasts 30 seconds. You may shapeshift in and out of cat form for its duration. Now, one couple benefits this thing's going to have is one, Berserk only lasts 15 seconds. And reduces the cost of all cat form abilities and increases. So you're still getting all that stuff, but you're getting additional 50%, and then you get the additional damage from Shred and Rake, because you're going to get the like the opener damage that you normally would. So this is kind of a nice cooldown if you're needing it on a 3-minute cooldown. And then Savage Roar. This is, in my opinion, this is probably going to be the better way to go in a long distance fight that doesn't need insane burst damage. 25 energy, and it's going to work the same as on live for the most part. Finishing move that grants 30% increased damage to your cat form attacks for their full duration. Lasts longer per combo point. Obviously, this is going to be some pretty nice additional damage. But keeping this thing up while questing, I went Soul of the Forest instead. But this is going to be your general go-to for increased damage. Sabertooth. Ferocious Bite always refreshes the duration on Rip. This was just something I was playing with more or less. It wasn't so much the best for questing, but having that additional, it really made it boring, to be honest, because Ferocious Bite was the only button you hit after Rip's up. The nice part is, though, if you apply it with Tiger's Fury and you get your main bonuses on top of this, you can actually keep that high damage Rip up all the time just by hitting Ferocious Bite. Simplifies it quite a bit, but again, it's a pacing issue for me, and I just get really bored with the spec. Sorry, guys. Jagged Wounds, passive. Your Rip, Rake, and Thrash abilities deal the same damage as normal, but in 33% less time. Basically, your bleeds are going to bleed faster, and this is going to cause a pretty good amount of increased bleed damage. Then you've got Elun's Guidance. It's instant, it's 45-second cooldown, immediately gain 5 combo points, and an additional 1 combo point every 1 second for 5 seconds. It's a decent little, again, on-demand cooldown. If you're needing the combo points, it's going to be a gameplay changer. 45 seconds, you're going to get a little bit more burst. Level 100, Brutal Slash. This is your AoE go-to ability if you need to be a cleave machine. What it's going to do, 16-second recharge. You actually have 3 charges of this thing. Strikes all enemies with a massive slash, inflicting 60,000 physical damage, and awards 1 combo point, maximum 3 charges, like mentioned. Costs 20 energy. It replaces Swipe. Now, what Swipe only does 16,000, but it can get a 20% modifier from your bleeds. This here is just going to be a solid 60, not 16, but 60,000 physical damage, and you can hit this thing back to back 3 times if you really need to do some insane cleave damage. Helps out a lot if you've got like little burst waves of smaller mobs, let's say like the little skittering spiders or something like that. You got to get down real quick. This is going to be the way to end up doing it, and it's pretty solid. Then you've got Blood Talons. This is still in here. It still feels exactly the same, and it's another great gameplay changer. This is going to probably, again, be the best way to modify your damage and increase your damage. Again, if you go into this, it's going to, let's just read it. Casting Healing Touch causes your next 2 melee abilities to deal 30% increased damage for their full duration. So again, this is going to tie into how strong you want to get your bleeds. If you end up taking Blood Talons and you end up using Tiger's Fury, you can time this out to where you can increase that next Rip by a total of 45%. And with Sabertooth, you can keep that up the whole entire time and never have to worry about it again. You can actually use this additional damage into something like Shred or, again, Ferocious Bite. Timing is everything with this ability, and you can really modify your damage a ton, or you can really gimp the shit out of it, depending on which way you go. Moment of Clarity, it's passive. Omen of Clarity now affects the next 3 cat form abilities, and your maximum energy is increased by 30%. With this, again, I took this for questing more than anything because this was just a faster, get something killed, as to where this is going to be better for longer fights. With that, there you go, guys. There's the talents. Let's go take a look at the artifacts and some of the new kitty skins. So here we are looking at the skins, and first model right here, guys, very opener. It's looking really solid compared to the base model that we're used to. Plays out very nice. I am playing as a Tauren Shaman, or Tauren Druid. Wow, I'm used to being a Shaman, guys, sorry. So what you're looking at, pretty solid decision on these skins. They are fucking epic. Way better, way better than what we are used to, and it's enjoyable. It's about damn time. And then we're gonna look at Nature's Fury here. You're basically carved out of wood. Really nice looking. Gives you that good druid feel with this one. And then Primal Stalker, we're gonna let this turn around because this is by far my favorite. Makes you feel really like a Zandalari tiger or something. A lot of really good color schemes in this one too. But there you go. There's the first one. And there's that one. The purple one. Looks different, but man. But they are really good looking. The Primal Stalker is by far probably my favorite. And then we'll look at the PvP ones here once it turns to the side. Incarnation of Nightmare. This one's pretty solid also. I don't care for this. This right here is just, they could have done something more than the vines. It really doesn't seem to fit all that well in my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. Good look at the cat's ass. Let's let it spin around so you can actually see the model. And there you have it, guys. Very nice looking skins. Very nice. And with this, let's move on to the traits. Alright, Fangs of Ashmane. Again, we went over Ashmane's Frenzy and the ability, but we'll go over it again. And it's going to do a very small amount of physical damage over 3 seconds. And then it also ends up putting a bleed on over 6 seconds that does a ton of bleed damage. First step, though, after you get this thing, increases damage dealt by Shred by 15%. Very much needed upgrade. Because before this, Shred hit like nothing. Really not fair. So we'll go into Sharpened Claws, rank 0-3, increases damage dealt by swipe by 5, 10, or 15%. Good damage increase. Hardened Roots, rank 0-1, your bleed damage will no longer cancel Entangling Roots early, so if you need to root something and let it bleed to death, there's a way to do it. Feral Power, rank 0-3, increase the critical strike chance of Shred by 5, 10, or 15%. This is always nice because you'll get additional combo points each time you Shred, and Shred is your main filler spell. Honed Instincts, rank 0-3, increases the duration of Survival Instinct by 1 second, so 1, 2, or 3. First Golden Dragonware coming to is Shadow Thrash, rank 0-1. Thrash has a 25% chance to release part of Ashmane's soul, causing all nearby enemies to take 71,000 shadow damage over 2 seconds. Again, that'll end up modifying a bit. Feral Instincts, rank 0-3. Berserk increases all damage you deal by 5, 10, or 15%. That's always nice because your 3-minute cooldown is a little on the weaker compared to some of them, and this is going to help improve it quite a bit. Scent of Blood. Each target hit by Thrash reduces the cost of swipe by 2 energy for the next 4 seconds, so a little more AoE, guys. That's going to be nice in heavy cleave situations. Powerful Bite, 0-3, increase critical strike damage done by Ferocious Bite by 5, 10, or 15%. Awesome. You can see where this is going. Crit is more than likely going to be top dog on this spec yet again. Ashmane's Bite, rank 0-1. Your combo point generators against targets bleeding from your rip have a 3% chance to awaken the spirit of Ashmane, which inflicts a shadowy duplicate of that rip on the target. Double rip, but this one will be considered shadow damage, so it won't be modified by your actual mastery. But the nice part is, if you have this rip, and as we talked going over the talents and the abilities of how to actually increase this damage, and we'll talk about it a little more in the gameplay, this is going to be a very solid piece to help increase that damage. Unfortunately, the shadowy duplicate is their way of saying mastery will not affect this. So it's going to be gameplay choices that actually end up increasing this thing's damage. The baseline damage, if you get the full 45% by timing your Blood Talons and your Tiger's Fury just right and you get this thing up, that's going to end up helping out quite a bit. Razor Fangs increases damage dealt by Rip by 5, 10, or 15%. Hey, look, that kind of plays into there too. Ashmane's Energy, rank 03, Tiger's Fury generates an additional 5, 10, or 15 energy every 1 second for 3 seconds. Okay, very nice. Makes it a very good 30-second cooldown. Open Wounds, our last Golden Dragon. The Fangs of Ashmane tear deep into your target, causing your attacks to ignore 15% of the target's armor while Rip is active. So what you're telling me is the kitty gets armor pen back? Yeah, alright, good damage. And with this, we'll go to Attune to Nature. Increase healing done by Healing Touch by 15, 30, or 45%. As I mentioned before, it doesn't heal worth a crap, so this is going to help out quite a bit. Especially if you played Feral for a while and you've got a mouse over macro or something for actually helping out with the raid healing. This is going to make you very, very structured and a lot more utility based, so you can actually help pop people back up and help the healers out. Protection of Ashmane, rank 01. When you shapeshift out of cat form, you gain 100% increased dodge chance and armor for 5 seconds, or until you shapeshift back into cat form. It can only occur once every 30 seconds. So if you need to pop out and heal yourself for some reason, there you go. It's going to help you survive. Tear the Flesh, rank 03, increases damage dealt by rake by 5, 10, or 15%. There you have it, guys. Basic damage modifiers and increases. This is going to be a fun one because you're going to actually, more than likely, you'll probably wait for this to actually use your cooldown. This is going to be your doorway or opening to do some really, really good amount of damage. And honestly, the way it's reading out to me, I have not actually tested it. The Fangs of Ashmane tear deep into your target, causing your attacks to ignore 15% of the target's armor while Rip is active. So while you have Rip active, you have 15% armor penetration. We'll take it. That is pretty damn insane. And with this, guys, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the gameplay. So if you've played him once, you've played him twice. The Feral Druid is still the basic same principle that it is on live. 4 damage in a PvE rotation. There have been a few things that have been removed, but unfortunately, well, fortunately, it really has not changed much, guys. You are based around keeping your rakes and your bleeds, your rip, your bleeds all up, and then using Ferocious Bite when it's necessary, guys. Usually around the 50 energy mark, so you can get the double damage out of it. It is a very patience-oriented spec. You have to be patient with it. You have to know what you're looking for just to keep the damage up. Ashmane's Frenzy, for an artifact ability, feels very weak. It does an okay amount of damage with the additional bleed, but unfortunately the damage it's not high enough currently. Now the nice part about it though is it does award 3 combo points. All in all, the general spec of this, let's talk single target rotation. Start it off. Let's go straight to boss fight. How's that? Boss fight rotation. So here we are, we're looking at a boss fight, and what you're going to start off with is your choice, depending on what you want to do. Start off in Prowl, and then you're going to use either Shred or Rake, depending on which you want to end up doing. Rake is going to give you the benefit of 100% increased damage on a boss, or Shred is going to give you 20% increased damage and has a double the chance to critical strike. So you can prep up with a little more combo points with Shred, or you can actually do more bleed damage. Really, guys, it's up to you. I didn't notice a whole hell of a lot switching from rotation to rotation on where the damage actually lied, because this is just a base opener. Then your next deal that you're going to want to do is get your bleeds up. Depending on which way you go, this will make it easy. You want to keep Rake and Rip up. Rip is always supposed to be at a 5 combo point. Now, how we talked before, you want to actually strategically set this up to where you build your combo points through Rake and Shred. And then when you end up actually getting to the point of where you're going to use them, if you took Blood Talons, make sure you're using Blood Talons just beforehand or prepping into it. And then you're going to want to use Tiger's Fury. Tiger's Fury is going to give an additional 15%, Blood Talons is going to give an additional 30%, and you want to you're going to want to use your Rip during this window for the increased 45%. It's just a good modifier to keep up. Now, the way that I ended up going, I actually cheesed it because well, the spec to me is very slow to begin with, so I went with some faster energy regen to kind of keep it paced up, so I didn't go that route. But what I was doing was I was keeping Ferocious Bite up and using it on the 50 energy as much as possible to get the full benefit. Ferocious Bite's going to be your filler combo point spender, as to where Rip is going to be your main priority of keeping them up. And then if you went with Savage Roar, obviously that's going to be the first place you start. Back to the boss fight, if you did take Savage Roar, make sure that's your first ability and then build up to your next 5 combo points. And then you can end up prepping a lot easier to get the improved damage. So what you're looking at, if you have Savage Roar up, Blood Talons, and then you pop Tiger's Fury just before you hit Rip, you're actually looking at 30% increased damage on that Rip for the full duration from Savage Roar, another 30% from Blood Talons, and then you're looking at Tiger's Fury giving 15%. So you can increase this thing to a total of 75%, all depending on how you want to end up speccing it. Really, guys, you can make this as hard or as easy as possible, but the damage difference between the two is going to be outstanding. There's going to be a huge gap in player style on this spec. It's not the easiest because it takes a lot of patience. You have to be very, very patient with the spec still. Energy regen's much lower than it seems lower than it's ever been, really. And then you have to end up looking into the fact of, okay, how do I want to place this damage? And it takes some time, it takes some concentration, and it takes some mental agility to get used to the actual rotation and timing of everything. But you do have ways of keeping it up and keeping it easy also. But that's not always the best choice. Now with this, let's talk a little bit on the AoE side. With AoE, you're basically looking at very basic rotation of keeping the bleed up off of Thrash, using Swipe as your main filler, at least on, we're going to talk 3 or more targets, probably better 4 or more targets. That's going to be your general. On 2 to 3 targets, you're going to just do a regular single rotation, but and try and keep Rip up on as many targets as possible because it does do some really good damage. In AoE, I'm talking 4+ mobs. You're looking at Thrash and then Swipe while you're maintaining your auto attack. So once you get your 5 combo points, throw a Rip and then tab over to the next one, you know, and just rinse and repeat. And you want to make sure you're trying to keep your Rips up on as many targets as possible. Fairly simple, guys. As long as that target's bleeding, Shred's always going to get that increased 20% damage, and Thrash is a good way to keep that bleeding up. Unfortunately, you are mainly stuck still being a single target spec more than anything else, unless you spec completely different in your talents. And you end up taking, what is it called? There's the Brutal Slash. That's what it's called. That one there is going to be a way for you to actually turn into a little bit better on AoE, but you're losing out on a ton of single target damage priorities if you do end up taking it. Focusing this spec as single target is more than likely still going to be the way to go. And again, I didn't really do a whole hell of a lot on this. There's not a lot of changes with this spec. Oh, with this, let's go ahead and take a look at the logs to see exactly how they're playing. So here we are, we're looking at Oakheart from the Darkheart Thicket. And this is where your damage is really lying, guys. And again, Shred, it's still doing some pretty good amount of damage. I don't have a lot of mastery right now, so my bleeds are really low in comparison to what they should be. But I do have a bit more crit, and that's probably why they're sitting a little higher. And I am no master Feral Druid, guys. Not at all. Again, the spec really kind of bores me out, unfortunately, so I'm not giving it as fair of an intent as I should. But with this, what you're looking at, generally Shred is going to be in the purple right here, and then you're looking at Rip, which is your main bleed. The damage will definitely increase in a more skilled player's hands. I'm going to be the lower end of this because, again, I do not play this spec well, and I do not end up going forward a lot. But where you can see this is damage-wise, average shred is looking about 60,000. Ashmane's Fury, this thing is it's fairly weak, and again, this is your bleed down at the bottom, and then you're looking at the actual swings. I cast it 2 total times, so you're 15 swings, average damage, not a whole lot there. Then you're looking at Rake. Rake is just your general filler bleed. Again, more mastery, this is going to go up, but I was more crit and haste because that's what the quest gear ended up giving me for some silly reason. And then Ashmane's Frenzy. Ashmane's Frenzy, again, not a whole lot. Rake, again, this is just the initial damage that you would normally end up getting, guys, so not a lot there. As you can see, really, not a lot to look forward to in damage specs. And this will definitely increase, I can tell you that much. It'll definitely increase, and in theory, it'll definitely increase on the bleeds and the gameplay, and you're going to see a huge difference in where this damage actually lies in a very skilled Feral player's hands compared to somebody that's not as familiar with the Feral spec. I'm familiar with the Feral spec, I just normally don't care for it. With that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it got a little bit of information to you. And really, I hope you enjoyed yourself. And thanks for watching.